Welcome to Your Business, Your Life with Matt DiFrancesco, your personal financial technician. Whether you've had years of success in your business or just starting out, HighLift Financial can help you create a vision for your business, life, and family, and align these for generational wealth. So as they say, what happens in your life affects your business. And now, on to the show. Hello and welcome to Your Business, Your Life with your host, me, Matt DiFrancesco. And I'm actually recording this on the day before Thanksgiving here in the United States. And my guest is actually from the Great White North, so he's already had his Thanksgiving. So we were just talking about that. But anyway, just before we get started, I just hope everybody, I'm sure by the time you listen to this, Thanksgiving will be over, but we'd be entering the holiday season, and I'm just hoping everybody has just a great holiday with your friends and family. So, but anyway, I am excited about having my guest, Pete Mohr, right?
Mohr, yeah.
Yeah, Mohr. Okay. I want to make sure I pronounce that properly.
Yeah, that's good. More or less.
More or less. There we go. That's how everybody will remember it, right?
There you go.
Sounds good. And I'm excited because Pete's an entrepreneur. He's a business coach. He's also got his own podcast, and he specializes in creating and explaining frameworks that simplify leadership strategy and communication across all different types of businesses. And he basically helps these business owners through his coaching practice, which is called Simplifying Entrepreneurship, to navigate through the constant changes that they face. And as you know, I know as a business owner, and many of the listeners do, and that's something we all have to deal with, and especially during these times when we're dealing with COVID and just all sorts of craziness out there. Now, the one thing that really resonated with me is he strongly believes that business owners should live the life that they want, and instead of spending the majority of time working in their business, they need to be working on the business. And that's something that my coach has been preaching to me, and I preach to my clients too, that we need to learn how to chunk out strategic times that we're working in the business. We'll be much more working on the business will be much more effective than when we are working in the business. So, Pete, I'm really excited to hear your insights. You got a great amount of experience. So welcome to Your Business, Your Life.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Matt. It's just a pleasure to see you again, and really appreciate you having me here today, and excited for our conversation.
No problem. And I also, you see the musical instruments that are back there. Pete is also an accomplished musician too. So that's kind of living my dream, I guess.
It's fun. It's fun. It's just something to do other than working and reading and doing all those other things, life chores and everything. It's a good creative outlet.
That's great. That's awesome. So, and I think we need those. And I think business owners out there, it's good to have those things too. You just can't be working all the time, just grinding it out. You'll burn yourself out. So, and I know Pete's going to probably touch on that. So, but anyway, to get started, I kind of gave a top view of your experience. So I wanted to see if you could give the audience maybe a little deeper insights in what brought you where you are now.
Yeah. Well, you said it was only a half an hour podcast, right?
Yeah, exactly. We'll try to keep the condensed version. So
yeah, I'm 27 years into being an entrepreneur. So that's, I could do, let's see, 1 minute a year.
Right. We got other things we got to cover too. So.
Yeah. Like I said, I've been a lifelong entrepreneur, really only ever worked for somebody for about 6 months of my entire life. Right. And, on a full-time basis, outside of part-time jobs and stuff like that when I was a kid. Yeah. But from that perspective, my life's always been around entrepreneurism, and I worked at a shop actually for a short while. I know that's a big piece of what you do. And I held a spray gun for 15 years. One of my businesses, we refinished bathtubs and we refinished counters and cabinets and all sorts of different things. So I understand the service business. I had a cleaning franchise, and we serviced 300 businesses and grew it tenfold from when I took it over to when we sold it. I was a business broker for a while, helping people buy and sell businesses, which is how I found one of the businesses that I still own, which is called Shoetopia here in just outside of Toronto, about an hour outside of Toronto, in Ontario, Canada. And we own a couple of shoe stores right now, Shoetopia, and I also do some business coaching. I've got a few other side gigs on the go too. So entrepreneurism is my life, basically. It's everything that I do, and really love talking about it on these podcasts and coaching to it and all that stuff. So it's a big part of what I do and who I am.
Yeah, it's just exciting to be able to control your own future. And we're seeing more and more people, especially in this COVID world, that are saying, you know what, I can see now working remotely. I did a whole series on the lessons I've learned in 8 years of working virtually. And I think people are starting to see the benefits of that and starting to going to live their dreams by starting their own businesses, becoming entrepreneurs. So I think it's a great service that you offer.
Awesome. Thank you.
It's not without landmines, right?
Of course not. I mean, every business has landmines, right? And the big thing is how do you structure around so that they don't blow as heavily as they could? And I think, that's part of what I do with entrepreneurs when I'm coaching them is to try to navigate through those with tips and tools and frameworks and things like that help you through those so that they're not as sort of life-ending as sometimes it seems when you're in the midst of them.
Right. Exactly. Well, isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? And, I think there's so many different directions we could go with this. But like I said, the thing that kind of resonated with me, this idea of owning your own business instead of the business owning you. And I wanted you to explain why this happens and how a business owner can change the dynamic, because working in the collision repair industry, these guys are grinders and they think about just running cars, in and out, in and out, in and out. And it does become a job. And the other problem they have is if they try to go away because they're basically the business, they can't do that because their business will just all of a sudden just go into the toilet. So talk a little bit about that and how the business owner can change that dynamic. Yeah.
So, I call it turning your frustrations into freedoms. And, what you really want, we get into business with this idea that if we own the business, we're going to have a better life. And what happens is that a lot of people lose track of that. They lose track of why they actually wanted to become an entrepreneur to begin with, because they get mired down in the frustrations and the overwhelm and all of the things and growing their business and the people problems and the product problems and the process problems. And all these problems are always coming at me. And I'm working, 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And it's like, this is not freedom. This is not the life I wanted to live. And it's 10 years down the road. Yeah. Okay. You're looking back going, what just happened? Right? What just happened here? Yeah. And so a lot of the people that I work with, it's like, okay, they've come to this realization that they're not getting what they want out of their business. And a lot of times that's the freedom to do what they want to do. Right. And, the freedom to not have to be there from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. The freedom to, not actually have to get out there and sand that car and spray that car. I mean, I've done that. I've held an HVLP for 15 years. I mean, I know I've done that. I've been through that stuff. I know the pain. Right. And those kind of things, when I was growing my business, it's like, okay, I did it for a while, but then I'm training other people to get in there and do those things. Mm-hmm. And what happens is most entrepreneurs don't relinquish control. That's their biggest issue. Mm-hmm. They need to have somebody to actually allow them to relinquish control. It's like it's okay to relinquish control on this stuff. And how do you do that? Well, you set it up with the proper processes. Right. You need to have the proper processes so that you can manage this stuff from wherever you are, so that it gives you the freedom to manage from afar if you so desire. Right. It allows you the opportunity to go into work when you want to go into work, to be away when you want to be away, to take that trip, to take the extra long weekend off for Thanksgiving, it's coming up to Thanksgiving or whatever the case is. It's like, what? All of those things that we want as entrepreneurs, to spend some time with your family, to see the kids' baseball game, all of that sort of stuff that we're missing as entrepreneurs. And those 10 years fly by and we look back and we're going, oh my gosh. So how do we do this? Well, we set it up through a series of frameworks that are going to allow us to make our business turnkey, almost like a passive investment. And I mean, I can say from my experience right now with our shoe stores, for example, I've got my shoe store set up that I spend about 8 hours or so a week in my shoe stores, which allows me the opportunity to do what we're doing now and allows me the opportunity to coach. And people say, like, how can you do that when you're running these other businesses? Well, I actually have my business set up that it's running itself. I've got a great team in place. They know what their accountabilities are. Right. And they know what they need to do in order to move the ball ahead. They're aligned with the mission. They know what the promise is to the customer. All of those things are everybody knows that stuff. And the job for me is to continuously communicate what that is, what the mission is, what we need to do, what our promise are we delivering, so that everybody in my entire organization, and for most of your listeners, everybody from the person at the front desk down to the guy who's cleaning and detailing the cars before they go out the back door, all of that stuff, everybody knows what their place is, what they're accountable for, and what that means to the growth of the business.
Right. And it's interesting, but you made a comment about relinquishing control. And, it's funny because I really struggle with that. I understand, about finding the right people in the right seats and doing that. But then there's always this little control freak that's in me. And I find a lot of business owners are like that too, where we develop the processes, but they just can't let go. What can the business owner do to free himself up mentally to allow himself to do this?
Go away for a month.
Very good. Yeah. Yeah.
It forces the hand.
Right.
If you take a month of time, just say, I'm going to Europe for a month. I'm going to Australia for a month next summer. Don't do it next week, but plan it for next year. We're at the end of the year here, and say, listen, next fall, we're planning a 1 month vacation to Europe. And what will that do? That will light the fire underneath all of the operatives in your business to do what they need to do, to set up the systems, to do everything that needs to happen so that you can go away on your vacation. People actually want that.
Yeah.
Your management team wants to feel as though they are accountable. And I think that's one of the things entrepreneurs don't realize. They don't actually think, they feel this pressure on their shoulders all the time that I'm always accountable for stuff. Right. But most people, especially the people in the managerial roles within your business, they actually want that. They want to be a part of the decisions. They want to help you make the decisions. They want to see what their decisions do for the business. They want to feel as though it's part of it. That's why they're in management, right?
That's right.
And so let them manage, let them do the things, and you move yourself up into the owner's box and lead.
Right. And I think the thing that transformed me was an interesting. I don't know if you ever read the book 4 Hour Work Week from Tim Ferriss. Yeah, because I got into it and I just wasn't resonating with me like the first chapter. And then he asked that question. He said, if retirement was not an option for you, how would your life and business be different? Yeah. And that kind of hit me between the eyes, because I'm going, who knows, if maybe I won't be able to retire. So how do I want to design things? And that's where my practice is very much what I call a lifestyle practice, because I utilize technology, but I can still have the freedom to do some of the things that I want. And we were just talking about at my business planning conference that I just got back from last week, this idea of sabbatical. And I was actually going to test it out last summer in July. And then my dad had some health problems and everything kind of blew up. But that was the one thing. And my coach was saying some of his guys that have done this, all of a sudden it just transformed them. It's like, no, I've got to do this again. And now you can start laying those groundworks and start understanding what you can let go of, what you can let control of.
Yeah. And when you start doing that, you start living in your genius zone. And, you have to understand what your genius zone is. And that's one of the frameworks that I put all of my clients through too. It's like, let's pull you up into your genius zone where you're really doing what you truly love to do every day. Right. And you're not doing all those things that mire you down in frustration. When you come home from work, you actually feel as though you're ready to go, as opposed to, oh my God, am I ever tired? Right. When all of those things that you're doing within your business are elevating your energy instead of draining your energy, that's when you're in your genius zone. And when you pass off some of the things that you don't want to do, that you're feeling you still need to control and all this stuff, and you really don't want them, you pass off that control to other people. Well, in fact, a lot of times those other things are in those other people's genius zone. They actually want to do them. Just because you don't want to do them doesn't mean that they don't. Right. Let's use bookkeeping for an example. A lot of people love bookkeeping. They want to balance the account. And when they balance the account, they're like, woohoo, I balanced the account. They love it. That's what they do. Well, for me, I have lots of business degrees. I was, a couple of months away from being an accountant. I didn't want to be an accountant. I can do it. I'm good at it. I don't want to do it. And it drains me of all of my energy. Right. So but I give it to somebody who loves doing that. And I'm giving her something off of my plate onto her plate that's in her genius zone. So what happens? She does a better job at it than me.
Right.
And I'm relieved of it. Mm-hmm. And from that perspective, we can both focus on what we're really good at, and the business grows because of it.
Right. Oh, isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth?
We hold our own selves back, Matt, as entrepreneurs, because we don't allow this stuff to happen, because we feel that we need to know every little thing, because we think that if we don't know every single little thing and every little detail, that either our clients are going to think we're dumb, our staff are going to think we're dumb, or our friends or whatever are going to think, you should know that stuff about your business. Well, the fact of the matter is that after your business is to a certain point, you can't know everything about your business.
That's
and you
right.
just have to start letting it go and being okay with that.
Yeah. And what's interesting, I think, and it's a key thing. It's a number of guests have highlighted this idea of developing the proper culture, and also having the right butts in the right seats.
Oh, yeah.
And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that, because I think that's one of the things that most business owners struggle with. They've, like, to give you an example, bookkeeping. They'll find somebody who's very good at bookkeeping, but is it the right person for that seat in their business? Do they fit the culture of the business? I don't know if you can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. I mean, and that terminology, I love Gino Wickman's book, Traction, and having the right butt in the right seat. I know that is Gino Wickman terminology, right? And so I love the other terminology I like from that framework is called the accountability chart. So when you change, and I use this a lot, and I'm, I'll give it all to Gino Wickman because I just love the framework. I don't use the term organizational chart. I use the word accountability chart because of that. Because when you start laying the fact that this person is accountable for this in their terms, I mean, it as the owner, but when you're putting this out and you're showing it and you're having your quarterly meetings and you're doing all this stuff, and it's like, these people are accountable for this, it changes the framework around who is accountable for what. And when you have the right butts in the right seats, when, sometimes the right person is in the wrong seat.
Right.
So it doesn't mean that person's wrong culturally for the organization. They just may be in the wrong seat. They may be doing the wrong thing. Like that person who's doing bookkeeping may be actually a stellar customer service person or operations manager or something, but you've got them in accounting because they have an accounting degree,
right?
But ultimately you find that they're actually the best customer service person you ever want. So you flip them into customer service and they excel and they do awesome. And you bring somebody else in who really wants to do bookkeeping. Right. And that's that idea of having the right person in the right seat. It's all around that cultural fit that is going to align. Again, as the leader, we need to be always communicating what's the mission, what's the goal, what's our promise, all of these things. And when everybody, it either repels people or it attracts people.
Right.
And the more we communicate that sort of stuff as leaders, the more you're going to attract the right people into the right seats and repel the people that are in the wrong seat. Right. Because they're going to know themselves they aren't in the right spot.
Yeah.
And, they don't fit. So a lot of times those people that don't fit end up leaving. Right. And that's okay. They're not the right fit.
Exactly.
And so until you start building this culture around where people are attracted to work with you because of the environment that you have and because of what you offer and because of the way you operate the business, then, you're always going to be scrambling to find right fit seats. And it doesn't happen overnight. It can take years sometimes.
Yes.
But that's okay because today's the day to start. If you're not there yet, you have to start. Right.
Yep.
And that's the kind of stuff we work on,
Yeah, that's awesome. Dealing with family businesses, it's interesting because many times, children of the founders or the owners, and the parents also naturally assume that the kids are going to come in. And I've seen so many times where there's conflict within the business. And we've actually had situations where for lack of a better term, fired the kids and just, and it was more of a conversation like, look, there's tension that's here. You need to grow some more. It would be better if you came out of that environment, all right, and did something else. And what's interesting is many of them do that, are gone for a few years, and then they come back and they're like ready now. And they're also bringing a whole different skill set to the table. I mean, is that something that you've worked with, especially in the family business arena?
Absolutely.
That's always a different dynamic,
Deal with family businesses too. And yes, on the flip side, we've also had to fire parents.
Interesting. Talk about that.
So when it's time to go, it's time to go. So if you've already said that here's the transition plan and blah, 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 then it's time to leave when you've agreed. And sometimes people that have been around for 20, 30 years, whatever the case is, family business, they refuse to leave and they refuse to relinquish control, which is what we're just talking about earlier.
Yes,
they refuse to actually let their kids move on with the business in the way that they need to move on with it for the next 20 or 30 years. Right. And what happens there is it just stalls it for another 4 or 5 years until they actually do want to, retire or whatever the case is. And that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate for the business. That's unfortunate for the family. Right. The meddling, I'll call it meddling of the seniors, of the family, trying to continuously tell people, their kids on how to run this thing and how, this is the way we've always done it. You can't change. That's the way we've always done it is the big line we hear, right? Yeah. It's the way. Well, it's not the way, maybe, and maybe they have a new flavor and, maybe the business will even be twice as big as it is today, 20 years from now. And you have to actually let them do it and let them go and give them the grace to move ahead. So, working with family businesses is a big thing. And I've done a lot of that sort of stuff. And it's interesting. I love it. And but these are the conversations that we have, right?
That's exactly right. And I think a lot of times you need to bring in that outside person to be able to help to navigate and to be that kind of sounding board for everybody. Like one of my premises, because I work with, family owned collision shops, is I want to start with getting the family together and do what I call the family meeting. All right. Yeah. And the what I want to do is create a family vision for them so we can start to see how the business fits in and then start develop a plan to do that. Interesting thing is every time I do these businesses, especially if they're, multi-generational, like we're maybe going into the third generation, I've had spouses tell me, thank you. So-and-so, Jim never had this opportunity with his family to allow the kids to give feedback. But I also start it usually with the founders telling their story, because many times the kids have no idea even how this business started. And I tell the kids a lot of times that you got to understand this business is like a child for your mom and dad, because they birthed it. Yeah. And they've grown it and they built it. So they're going to be a little, we just have to manage through this.
We do. And those are what I call crucial conversations, right? Yeah. You need to have the crucial conversations around that. But the reality of it is they just have to happen, Matt. They just have to happen. And the time is now, with that stuff. It's never too early to start having those crucial conversations if in fact that's where you're at in your business. And using a facilitator like you or me or any other coach that's going to help use that usually aids things along the way and gets things going. Yeah. In a lot of times what's a very stalled sort of stressful time for both sides, both parents and kids, because the parents actually want to move on and the kids want to move on, but nobody's moving on.
Yeah. They're kind of stuck. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're stalled because they don't know what to do and they don't know how to go and they don't want to hurt feelings and they don't have like all the stuff that goes along with it. So it's an interesting thing. And
they call it paralysis by analysis, right?
Oh yeah. And setting up all of that stuff around there is such a crucial piece that you work through all of those things so that the business can continue and the family can continue. The relationship's more important than the business is in my opinion.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. And I think that's what I've talked to other business coaches who, and they've actually said this to me, like the business is my client. I'm thinking, oh my God, I said, no, the family's the most important thing. I mean, the business is just another tool for them. But you start disrupting all those family relationships, and that's why I've entitled the podcast "Your Business, Your Life," because what happens in your life affects your business. What happens in your business affects your life, and it's amazing. And they just keep going around and around and around. And we've got to find some kind of balance between all of them. We've got to find some synergy, probably is a better term to use, between all of them.
We have to create the business that supports our lifestyle, not have a lifestyle that supports our business.
Right. Oh, exactly. You hit the nail on the head.
And that's essentially all of the things that I do on my podcast and my coaching business, and how I try to live, because I still own multiple businesses and still have a good life and all that, and great relationships with my family. And I travel 5 hours away to see my parents every month because they're thankfully still alive, and spend a few days with them. And, because that's part of what I want out of my life. And, and my business delivers that to me because I've set it up in that way that I can do that. Right. And that's what I want for other business owners. I don't want them to be mired down in those frustrations. I don't want them to feel this overwhelm, and I want them to get their time back, their relationships. I want them to feel healthy, less stress, healthy, both mentally and physically, and to be able to live their personal mission through their business. And I think when we can do that, and we can set the business up in order to do that with the ways that we practice through our coaching procedures and stuff like that, then, and it takes time. It doesn't happen in a quarter. It usually takes a while. But again, like I said, if you don't start today, when are you going to start? And from that perspective, it's never too early and it's never too late to make those things happen for most entrepreneurs.
Oh yeah, I hear you. So one thing I did want to ask you, because I know, and like I said, we could probably go on about your processes and all that stuff, but I know you kind of have like 3 different areas that business owners can work with you. You have the Business Made Simple University, you have the Entrepreneur Toolbox, and the Customized Life Coaching. Could you touch on what each one of those and where, what might be the best fit for a business owner in each one of those?
Yeah. So with Business Made, I'm a Business Made Simple certified coach. And with that, Business Made Simple is a book by Donald Miller. And he also wrote Story Brand, which is another great book. And we coached a lot of those frameworks. So Business Made Simple University is basically a online courses, battery of courses, some also awesome courses, really. And I can give you the link for that to put in the show notes as well.
We have
and then for most of my clients, quite honestly, I do what I call confidential coaching, and that includes the entrepreneurial toolbox and all that other stuff. And part of that is often Business Made Simple stuff, but a lot of the stuff that I've created with Simplifying Entrepreneurship, and we go through a lot of these different tools, a lot of these different structures. I do some group coaching too for different industries. A variety of different industry groups and things like that, where we'll do people like 5 or 6 people on group coaching. So I do some group coaching as well. But I'd say the majority of what I'm doing these days is one-on-one with the business owners themselves.
Right. And to me, when you talk about doing, your genius, like I'm sure that's your genius, and that's my genius too.
Yeah.
And I just love working with the clients. And again, when you talked about processes, I think that's why it's important. There's things that I always got to be offloading, and even sitting in my business planning workshop this past week, again, I was evaluating something else. And what else can I take off my plate so that I can do my genius? Like booking airline tickets. I hate it. I messed up my trip to Fort Lauderdale, booked the return flight a day too early. I decided to spend another $75 to change it. And I'm like, I just want to offload this.
Exactly. And one of the tools that I use with a lot of my clients, I have them literally write down all of the different things that they do every day. And we pick it apart. It's like, what can you get rid of? And what can't you? And what do you love doing? What don't you? And all these other things. And who else can take it for you? And all of those things. So important, One of the other things too, Matt, is that we've got a really great business assessment right now. And you can go to my website and at simplifyingentrpreneurship.com. In the upper right-hand corner, you click Take the Assessment. And it's a Business Made Simple tool. But basically, it takes about 15 minutes to do. And that assessment spits you back a report that's between 45 and 60 pages long. It's really in depth about your business. It really will dig into all of the major areas, your cash flow, your marketing, your execution, your people, like all of that stuff, and spit you back what you're really doing awesome at, and what the areas that you need, that they call it green flag, red flag, basically what's green flagged and what's red flagged, so that the areas you need to work on. And it will give you a great tool to start the new year, and some areas of influence that you might want to look at for the new year too. And it's a free assessment.
That's awesome. And you know what? And again, we'll have the website, Simplifying Entrepreneurship. It'll be in the show notes.
Cool.
And I'd strongly recommend going on there. I think, determining where your strengths and weaknesses are is a really, really important thing, especially if you want to start creating this business that will be self-managing. Yeah. We need to know where we're strong, but also where we're weak. And then the stuff that we're strong in, that's where we want to focus our attention. Pete and I, we focus our attention on working individually with the clients because that's our strong point. And I'm assuming that's your strong point, right? And the other things, we can start to offload those. So
important.
Right. So, no, I'm really excited about that. So you mentioned about the website, Simplifying Entrepreneurship. Where else can people find you?
Oh, I'm all over LinkedIn and Instagram, Facebook. I mean, you can catch me at Pete Mohr, Mohr is the correct spelling of my last name. Right. So, or on podcasts at Simplifying Entrepreneurship Podcast as well.
I was just going to say that. That's on all major channels, correct?
Yeah, for sure.
That's really cool. I've got a list here of, Pete had sent me of topics to discuss. And I mean, there are so many, I think, that are so great. And, things like, turning your frustrations into freedom, the 4 Ps. I didn't pick that one because I just had 2 different guests that had their P lists.
That's all good. P's and M's, they're the management letters, right?
That's exactly
P's,
right.
M's, and C's.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. And the one that was really interesting because he talked about the 1-page life plan for entrepreneurs. And I think that's something maybe if another time, if you're willing to come back on, talk about that, because that's kind of the core of what we do in our business plan in my industry, and that I work with clients on, is again, creating this family vision. And I mean, I'm in financial services. That's my core business. I don't profess to be a business coach, but I do like to have people to create, like, let's see what we want our lives to look like. Again, it's so important, an option. Yeah. So maybe we could talk about that at some point.
Would love to. And I've developed a planner that I use with that. And it's a good tool, and happy to share that with your audience too. When we do that. Yeah.
That's great. So we'll look at bringing you back on. We can talk about some of these things in more detail. I think it's just super stuff, guys. I'm telling you, this is Pete's jam-packed full of knowledge. Everything that he said is everything that I've learned in my business, that I've been working with my clients on moving towards. And I think we don't want a job. I think that's the best way to put it. We haven't built a job. We want to build a business. And so I think, this is
a business that works to craft us the life that we want, right?
Correct. Exactly.
So, we're like, I was on a call quickly, earlier today with a client, and she's like, I really didn't know what I wanted in my life. I just knew I wanted to grow a big business. And I've never stopped to really think. All I've ever thought about was keep growing. And it's like, well, why? For what?
Yeah.
Why do you want it to keep growing? Right. So it's interesting when you start looking at some of those things, right?
And
pulls it all back into reality.
Exactly. It's interesting. We were talking about in our business planning about Maslow's 6 human needs. And a lot of times there's, especially in the financial service industry, that's what these guys are about. It's like, let's build bigger. Yeah. And a lot of it's because one of their big needs is significance.
Yeah.
And, but that can only fulfill you for so long, because how long can you keep building and building and building? I mean, at some point you have no life then.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's different for every single person, and whatever it is for them is okay. And that's the big thing, right? It's like, it's okay to want what you want, and that's fine. Right.
Yeah. Perfect. So anyway, we could go on and on. Yeah. It's just like, I get so jacked up about this kind of stuff. I mean, it's just like, oh, let's talk about this. Let's talk about that. But we are at time. So we'll have you back on again at some point if you're open to that, and talk about some of these other ideas. But Pete, I want to thank you for being on. It's been just awesome. And the last thanks goes out to the listening audience. Thank you for listening to Your Business, Your Life with me, Matt DiFrancesco. And if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, you can click on the subscribe subscribe button below. That way, anytime a new episode comes out, it'll download directly to your device. And it also makes it a very easy way to share this podcast with your family and friends. Also, if you're watching us on YouTube, please give us a like. And if you like what you're hearing and seeing, please give us a 5-star review, because that way we can start to get out to more people. So, and like I said, we've had great guests, with like Pete here, who's got some great resources. And again, if you can't seem to find him, contact me. I will get you directly to him, because I'm not a business coach. I'm a financial technician here. So, but this is what I look to do, is to partner with a lot of these guys. So, again, thank you for joining us. Have a great day. Have a great holiday season, and take care, and God bless. So we'll talk to you soon. Hey, I really want to thank you for listening to the Your Business, Your Life podcast. If you want to be notified when new episodes become available, click the subscribe button below.
The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of High Lift Financial. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investment, legal, or tax advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified professional with any questions you may have regarding your business or personal planning. DiFrancesco Financial Concierge, LLC, DBA High Lift Financial, is a registered investment advisor. Registration with the United States Securities and Exchange Commission or any state security authority does not imply a certain level of skill or training.